The following program is sponsored by Friends of Life Outreach International.
I don't want the same government that can't run the Cash for Clunkers program to be run in the church.
Ralph Reed, public policy analyst and former executive director of the Christian Coalition, shares his concerns about today's government.
Democracy doesn't really work at all unless there's a citizenry animated by a moral code that derives from their faith in God.
Faith and Freedom, next.
Well, thank you very much. We do welcome all of you in the viewing audience all around the world, and those of you here in the United States. I'm going to actually be directing particular concerns to you. I'm James Robison. Betty and I are thrilled to present Life Today because we feel like that the program enhances the viewers' lives, and you enhance the lives of people all over the world. Betty and I, quite frankly, have found ourselves in our prayer time with some, I would call them very deep concerns for our country. I am concerned, Betty, about drifting away from what I call foundation principles that I think made the nation great, that our founders held to, and we're not talking about just some, let's say, religious perspective, but rather a foundational belief system based solidly upon the truths found in the Scriptures, in the Old and the New Testament. And they weren't all professing Christians per se, as we would see it, but they all believed in the rock-solid principles that are found very clearly in the Word of God, the Scriptures. And they came here looking for freedom. Our nation was founded on a desire for spiritual freedom. Recently, when I began to see the concerns, I wrote an article, and JamesRobison.net. I share what I call a commentary every week, basically talking about concerns. But I wrote one, Betty, on the harmony of church and state. Is there a harmony? We know we're continually told about separation. Well, I wrote about the desire that God has for us to be free, and Jesus came to set the captives free. As I studied our history, Betty, which is clear to those who study it, and not many get to anymore in our public school system, our founders understood the importance, the necessity of individual freedom and a very limited government that functioned to protect that freedom, and the freedom we enjoy carries with it responsibility. Well, it seems to me a lot of church people are not thinking about that. I called a friend, Ralph Reed, who at one time hated what was called the Christian Coalition because he was trying to get Christians informed and involved. And you got to ask the question, what are they even supposed to be? And by the way, he's written a novel, think about it, called Dark Horse, which talks about a campaign, and it is really interesting. It tells what goes on, but it's very inspirational and informative. But I called him and I asked Ralph, I said, any concerns today? He said, well, let me tell you what I'm doing. I've just started a coalition that I call Faith and Freedom. Well, the minute he said it, faith and freedom, I said, I've just been praying about that. Would you mind coming and talking to me and to Betty and our audience about it? And he agreed to come. Would you welcome Ralph Reed to Life Today? Ralph, I'm glad to see you.
Good to be with you.
Now, let me just tell you the impressions I have of you. You're sharp. You handle the mass, public, mean-spirited media very well. You have always, every time I've ever heard you, in any setting, you have answered very intelligently. You have answered in such a way that it has often caused me great concern that the media wouldn't always carry the whole story, but even the little clips, you always held the banner high. When I talk about the banner, I talk about truth, I talk about freedom, I talk about principles that every person who loves their family, who appreciates their freedom, every person who loves God should certainly appreciate. So I want to say thank you. Now, let's talk about what you're doing right now. I appreciate what you've always done trying to help people get good information that's reliable. What are you doing right now? What's on your heart?
Well, James, I've started a new grassroots venture, which you mentioned, called the Faith and Freedom Coalition, which is designed to bring together people who, many are people of faith, whether they're evangelical or Roman Catholic or they're of the Jewish faith, who are concerned about family, they're concerned about marriage, they're concerned about protecting our children, making sure that they're properly inculcated with not just the ability to read and write and add and subtract, but also know right from wrong. And they're concerned about the security of our country. They're concerned about the fact that right now in Washington, we're going to pile up more debt in the next 10 years than we have in the previous 225. And they want to do something about it. And so the Faith and Freedom Coalition is going out and organizing people in local chapters, both geographically, cities and counties, but also online. And we saw this, James, in 2008 with the Obama campaign. We saw what a powerful tool the internet can be in organizing.
A communication tool.
No question.
Organizational tool.
And you've now got somewhere in the neighborhood of 125 million people on Twitter, about the same number on Facebook. And what we've found at Faith and Freedom Coalition is we'll go out and announce something, and somebody on the other side of the country will hit one button on their computer and instantly tell 2,000 of their friends. James, we have not had, since the Gutenberg Bible, as revolutionary a change in the ability to carry a message in an information universe. I think it's going to totally transform our politics. And just as 1932 was the first real radio election under FDR, 1960 was the first real television election, of course the famous debates between Nixon and Kennedy, where people who listened on radio thought Nixon won, but people who watched on TV thought Kennedy won. I think historians will look back and say 2008 was the first real internet election, and every election from here on out, or at least in the foreseeable future, will be won or lost on the internet.
Well, you know, in a way that's positive in the sense that it at least gives you direct access to the individuals you're communicating with if they want to hear information or receive information. So here's the real key. Is it reliable information? And you know, you started out talking about people of faith. I've got to ask you this. When you talk about faith, are you talking about a faith in God as creator, as a sovereign God that our founders referred to in the founding documents, that there is a supreme power, there is an authority, there are some absolute standards? That's what you're saying?
Yes.
And you're talking about people of faith believe that, whether
Yes.
they're Roman Catholic or the evangelical Christian or charismatic or whatever they happen to be, or Jewish.
Right.
Whatever they are, they've got faith in God. All right, and they're not trying to force that faith on others, they share it, right?
Yeah.
They wouldn't believe in a forced faith because our country was founded trying to escape any kind of dominance by religion or by the kingdom of the former, let's say, countries where they came from, the nations they left.
Yeah,